go, Rob Stone, it'll be less formal. Go right ahead. Thank you.
I needed that. This is my third brief today, so thanks. I need that very much. My name is Rob Stone, and I work for DHS. I'm an intelligence officer for them, and I am assigned to TSA. So as an intelligence officer in Tucson, Arizona, I am concerned with the safety of all of you traveling through the air, on the highways, or on the rail. We don't have any ports here, so I don't have to worry about that. Thank God. So it's a very serious thing, because there still is a threat to all of us from radical Islam. I am not very PC, so please forgive me right in advance. I'm a realist. I'm also a retired naval captain. I'm sorry. I am tired already. I retired from the Navy as a captain, naval intelligence. Initially in my career, I was in the Asia area. Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, all over. So I saw Asia from top to bottom. It was fascinating. The last part of my career was in Europe. And tonight I'll address Bosnia a little bit, where we've been actually kind of successful. The Western nations have been successful to bring some kind of peace and order to that region of the world. But what I thought I'd talk about today is the troubles in Mexico, because that affects all of us here. And the fact that Mexico is not quite a failed state, but it's on the road to becoming one, sadly. It's very important to us that Mexico does not become a failed state, and that they are able to overcome their troubles within the country there. And what kind of troubles are we talking about? Why is Mexico basically at war with each other right now? There are 7 drug cartels in Mexico. There are 3 major cartels: the Sinaloa cartel, the Gulf cartel, and the Juarez cartel. They fuss with each other over territory, over loads and things like that. What territory are they fussing over primarily? Is the avenues into the United States. These are the major avenues in which drugs are smuggled into the United States. They're also the avenues in which aliens are smuggled into the United States. Not just Mexicans. We're getting Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Peruvians, Chile, Brazil, Iraq, Iran, China, North Korea, you name it, come across our borders. Agua Prieta, Nogales. If people who are seeking a better life are coming to the United States, then people who mean us harm can also come to the United States through these avenues. They may not announce it to the smuggler. They don't have to. They don't need to. They don't want to. They can blend in with the group that's coming across. We are at war. We're at war with radical Islam. Not all Muslims are bad. Not all Muslims are radicals. But every one of the angry Muslims that are out there, they're radicals or Muslims. Their religion encourages war against the infidel. Do we have any Muslims in here? Please help me out, because I'm not a Muslim, and I've done a lot of reading. But according to the Quran, there we go, right over here. Islam is the dominant religion. Islam is superior to everybody else. Muhammad was given the words of God through Gabriel in a cave in Saudi Arabia, the final word of God. And those that are firm believers are the ones that are different sects of Muslims, of course, but those that are the firm believers are the ones who are waging war with us now. And you find them all over: Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Indonesia. These are the people that may come through here. They won't have a nuclear bomb on their back. Our biggest fear is chemicals and biological weapons. Doesn't take much, just a little vial. With a little vial, you can make all kinds of bombs, all kinds of threats, anthrax, so forth. So those are the things I'm concerned about. So as an intelligence officer, I have to become as knowledgeable as possible. So so that when I come out and brief everybody like this, I can give a good intelligent brief and hopefully stimulate questions and things like that. So here we have Mexico on our border, almost 3,000 miles of border between Brownsville and San Diego. We have tunnels that come through. They smuggle via ultralights, submarines on both sides. I'll show you a submarine here shortly. These organizations are transnational, meaning they have contacts throughout the world. Some of these organizations have contacts with people who mean us harm, radical Muslims. They contract out their killings and their enforcement operators. You've heard of MS-13. You've heard of the Zetas. MS-13 primarily works over here with Sinaloa. Zetas primarily work with the Gulf Cartel. Alliances can change real quick. And they're all warring against the Mexican government. 2006, President Calderon declared war against the cartels. President Fox had done a little bit prior to that, but nothing compared to what Calderon has done. So we have a three-way war going on in Mexico right now. It's extremely violent and vicious. You have more beheadings in Mexico than you do in the Middle East. Over 6,000 people were killed, primarily Juarez and so forth. And now you got basically combat, firefights, if you will, throughout all of Mexico. Cartels control the border with Guatemala. You all have heard of the Zetas. That's their patch. In case you don't know real quick, Zetas are a group of former Mexican Army Special Forces that were selected by the military in Mexico to come to the United States, go to Fort Benning, Fort Bragg, any military Army guys here? Went to Benning and Bragg for training, got some real good training, came back to the United States, and to the surprise of both the United States and Mexico, some of them deserted and took their talent out and offered it to the cartels. These are Mexican Special Forces, guapas. These are not Zetas. But that's what you're dealing with, hard bodies. These guys are going to be well trained, highly motivated. Well, now they really are, because they make a very good living. They intimidate and scare. The original Zetas, almost all of them have been killed by the Mexican military and police whenever they've had firefights. But the second generation and third generation has already come about. You have Zeta wannabes down there in Mexico, 10, 12-year-old kids who want to grow up to be a Zeta. So, you have transnational drug organizations that have affiliations to a small degree with international terrorism. Money is no object to them. You heard the report about Mexico. 90% of the weapons go to Mexico, 95% come to the United States. No, that's not true. That's wrong, terribly wrong. Weapons have been smuggled to Mexico, primarily small arms. But the weapons the Mexican cartel foot soldiers are using are automatic weapons. AK-47s primarily, your weapon of choice, probably the best assault rifle ever made. And M16s. Some of the M16s and other weapons have been weapons that the U.S. military sells. We sell surplus weapons overseas to other organizations. You have black markets, and those come through southern Mexico, through Guatemala. Primarily from the FARC in Colombia and Venezuela. And then the open black market, which is kind of dominated by Russian mafia. So they have no trouble getting weapons. They don't need to come here to the United States. You don't get these at your local gun store or your gun shows. They have to come from a well-organized transnational weapon trafficking organization. Here is your drug trafficking organization submarine. Notice it says slow in the water and has an old sailor. That's difficult to see. You're not going to pick it up on radar. There'll be some young sailor with binoculars. Oh, look at that. A joint Mexican Navy, American Navy operation caught this one. They use them on both coasts of Mexico. Smuggle cocaine.
How deep is that thing?
What's that?
How big is that submarine? It looks like a surfboard.
It does, yeah. That's what
it looks like.
Yeah, an average sized guy can stand up in. So it has has pretty good drag. And they clamp fill with dope, put an engine in, propeller, steering wheel, and off they go. Mexican Army is the most, reliable source, reliable organization in Mexico to take on the cartels. The federal police in the Mexico area, Mexico City area, probably the ones we could trust the most. State, local, even the federal police along the border, we don't trust them. They don't trust each other. I've been to meetings in which you had the federales and the state police from Sonora sitting at the same table. They wouldn't look at each other. They wouldn't talk to each other. Fear, violence is dominating Mexico. They've had some vicious firefights down there. You can go on YouTube and see them, and it sounds like Vietnam. Any Vietnam vets in here? Hey, all right, yeah, me, 67, 69, U.S. Army. Next topic I thought I'd address is the Balkans. If I may, cooperation with Mexico is not that good. I wish it was better. I was at a meeting earlier today in which we had a Canadian talking to us about the Canadian-American border, the northern border, and the problems we have up there. They're nothing compared to the troubles we have in Mexico. With the Canadians, we can work out those problems fairly fast. What I heard, they want to be able to come and go in the United States with no problem at all, like it used to be. They don't like the waiting, and they don't understand why they have to show a passport. And I didn't want to be rude and tell them what the reason is, because Canadians have a very open immigration, and they're part of the old British Empire, which means anybody part of the old British Empire can go anywhere else. So if you're in Hong Kong, you want to go to Vancouver, Canada, hop on a plane, you're there. You don't need any visa. If you're from Pakistan, want to go to Vancouver, Canada, hop on a plane, you're there. A lot of people in Pakistan don't like us. So that's why we have to tighten the border. I just got through briefing a University of Arizona class on these two places, Mexico and the Balkans, primarily talking about cooperation. And like I said, cooperation with Mexico is not very good. Higher levels, it might be pretty good. Mexico City to Washington, D.C., not bad. But there again, the fear along the border is what handicaps any good solid cooperation. The only way that will improve is when the law enforcement officials we have assigned down there, the FBI, DEA particularly, they can develop good personal relationships with their counterpart. That's what's going to hopefully win this thing. In the long run, it's going to take a long time. Another place where we were successful, relatively successful, we, meaning the West, and the United States in particular, is in the Balkans. When Yugoslavia came apart after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, there was a vicious civil war took place. Over 100,000 people died between the various factors. There again, three-way war. You guys all remember that? Anybody ever understand who's doing what to who? You know? I'm a Westpac sailor. Okay, for those who've been in the Navy, I mean, I did all my tours in the Western Pacific. So I know how the Japanese, the Koreans don't like each other, Chinese, Japanese don't like each other, all that stuff. When I went to Europe, I thought, what in the hell is this all about? Seriously, I'd have somebody sit down and get the map out and explain all of who's fighting who's fussing with who. The acronyms are unbelievable. Yes?
It's one little problem with China not liking Japan. Japan doesn't have a military.
Japan doesn't have a military?
They got taken away after World War II.
That's true. They have a self-defense force. It's smaller. And, actually,
you don't want to go up against China. China has one of
It's good. And the Chinese, very good. You're right. Absolutely right. Because there's a lot of animosity between the Japanese and the Chinese. Japanese were not very nice to the Chinese in World War II. World War II started where? Boy, I like this boy. Exactly right. It did not start with the German army marching into Poland and the Soviet army marching into Poland. Of course, they never tell you that. It started in Asia. You're right.
Public school?
No, I am in public
Sorry.
but I didn't learn all this stuff.
He's a ham, Randy.
So here you have a sailor who's running on a ship, riding around in the ocean. I get in-country Europe. This is a great tour for me. I was assigned to EUCOM headquarters, U.S. European Command headquarters, Stuttgart, Germany, which I love. That was great. And then 4 deployed down to the Balkans, to Sarajevo twice. I was in Sarajevo, Zagreb, Slovenia. I was in all this area here. Yugoslavia came apart in 1991 because Yugoslavia is a whole state, to be honest with you. It was put together by the Western powers, not the United States, but the great powers of Europe at the end of World War I, the British and French. They dominated. The Germans, Habsburgs were no longer a power. Ottomans no longer a power. Turks had been kicked out of the Balkans. The Romanovs were fighting with each other, and the Bolsheviks were about ready to take over. So, the League of Nations thought, what we'll do is take all these people. You got Slavs, Serbia, and of course a lot of Slavs in Bosnia. You got Croats, Catholics, their loyalties, Slovenians Catholics, loyalties to the West, primarily Italy, believe it or not. Then you got this other group. If they weren't there, there wouldn't be any problems in the Balkans. But this other group plays a very important part. And a very large part of those people live in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Muslims. They are Croats and Serbs who gave up their Christian religion and became Muslim. Because when the Turks took it over, you could live a lot better as a Muslim. You weren't an infidel. Your children weren't sold into slavery or taken into slavery. The word slave comes from Slav. And these people became slaves to the Turks for hundreds of years, longer than blacks were slaves to whites in America. So there's a lot of anger, hostility there. A lot of emotion, a lot of nationalism. So everybody grew upside real fast when the government of Yugoslavia started falling apart. Serbs sided with Serbs, Croats with Croats, Muslims with Muslims. And it was really mixed in here real good, all of them. Over 100,000 people died. Organized crime became very lucrative. And believe it or not, all three organized crime groups, or Croats, Serbs, they worked together. It was business. A few weeks earlier, they'd been trying to kill each other, but they got a business deal going. They'll put down the rifles and work out something, smuggle dope, and so forth. By the end of the war, 98, 99, actually 97, 98, that time frame, white slavery became a major problem. The Russian mafia moved in to ally themselves with various organized crime groups in this area. The UN, which I don't really care too much about, NATO, which is weak, and the U.S. actually pulled it off together, where they were able to bring this under control within reason. We got them to stop fighting each other, so the little armies put down their weapons. The next problem is to tackle organized crime. And so it stopped the killings, the assassinations, grenade tossing, burning people out, that type of thing. So they took cops from all over the Western world, U.S., Canada, Britain, France, Germany, and they sent them in to train the cops of these countries here, particularly Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's a good gig. If you were a cop in Tucson, 20 years, retired, you could go here and work for the UN and triple your salary. And you don't get taxed. You don't get to carry a weapon either. That's the downside. Because initially, remember, emotions are running high, so forth. Well, they would take their hostilities out on the cops. And that's where I came in, because I had a gun, and we'd have to go rescue them. So, once emotions got calmed down, things started working out well. So right now, I'm actually feeling pretty good. The first year or two was real rough. We still have military presence here, obviously not that much. Kosovo has become another headache. I tend to think we're trying to do the same thing there with a small military presence to ensure there's enough muscle. And then we bring the international cops in to train the locals to be good cops. Get rid of corruption, people can rely on you, try to develop some type of civil organization, some type of civil society. Bear in mind, a lot of Muslims down there. Kosovo used to be a part of Serbia, Russian Orthodox. The Serbs perceived themselves as the great warriors of Europe, saving Europe from those rascally Muslims. And they did it down here, as well as in Yemen. That's how they look upon themselves in Europe. So those things play factors in it all. So for the most part, the West has done pretty good. A lot of cooperation. We still have trouble, but we can control it. So to have some sense of civil organization. You can go vacation there now. The Dalmatian coast is beautiful. Doesn't cost much. Great place to go. I get to talking, forget to give you the pictures. Oh, Flag of Bosnia. Isn't that beautiful? You know who invented that? A UN official. Anyway. Trivia question in case you ever... This is Sarajevo, and I've driven by that building many times. The players, Milosevic, war criminal. We tried to catch him while I was there. While I was there, I was involved with the American Special Forces to catch war criminals. I didn't get to go out. I was an intel officer, so I got to sit inside. But all the young SEALs and Army Special Forces hard bodies got to do that. The British and the French helped us. We were primarily used the British and the French, because this really is a European problem. Okay, we were successful sometimes, and sometimes we weren't. While I was there were 2 attempts. We got 1 guy, and well, I can't think of his name. He's a general with the Bosnian Serb Army. But Milosevic, I think the Serbs turned him over. He died in The Hague. He was one of the 3 bad guys. But anyway, it was fascinating. And so there was cooperation with the British and the French, American special warfare teams who got catch these guys. We had Canadians. I had Canadians on my team. Not Canadians, I'm sorry, Norwegians. Never met a Norwegian or a Dutchman I didn't like. They all spoke English like we do. You know how you say hello in Dutch? Hello? I always like to learn hello, how are you, please, sawadee-ka, konnichiwa. It's just trying to influence and influence people. But they got me. They got a good laugh out of it. There again, another shout out. These buildings were prime targets. Sarajevo was in a valley. You get a lot of snow there. And so when Yugoslavia was falling apart, the Serbian army, which moved back into Serbia, left all their artillery and mortars for this Bosnian Serbian army to fight the Bosnian Serbian Croats and the Bosnian Muslims. It's a 3-way war. It gets confusing on whose side. This is part of downtown Sarajevo, a stream. This is an example. This is not the bridge, but there was a bridge they called the Romeo and Juliet Bridge. You can see that Sarajevo, the hills there, surrounded. Young couple, one of them was Croat, one was Serb. They were in love with each other. They wanted to get out. And the place was surrounded. Snipers, mortar rounds, artillery rounds coming in all the time. And so they said, hell with it. We're not a threat to anybody. Yeah, we'll wipe handcuff off that bridge and leave. And they were both gunned down and shot and bled to death. Okay. Sorry? Yes. Our historian here. Yes.
That looks like a town from the 17th century. There's no modern stuff.
No. With the modern buildings you saw were the ones shot up. And it has a lot of that Soviet architecture, with 200 units, and there's no elevator, and they're 6 stories high, and they're falling apart.
Those are the Cabrini Green projects there.
But it dates back. Sarajevo was an older city. Actually, where I was at there in outside of Sarajevo was the exact location where a Roman legionary headquarters was at. So the Romans occupied this. And there was even stones behind the building, nice big ones, you know. It's still chiseled, you could barely read it, but it was, you know, Mom and Dad loved your 3 sons, that, you know, that they were buried there. And you see the foundation of the stables, and their, they loved to do baths, so they had baths. But the Roman army occupied this place. And here we are at the end of the 20th century, the UN, or the NATO army, if you will, occupying the same spot. But yeah, older city is one of the first cities in Europe to get electricity, so they had trolleys. That's it at night. It does get very cold there. There's the mountains all around, and basically I was way out over this way. This is the library, very well-known library in Sarajevo that the Serbs bombarded and set on fire, and it burned for 2 weeks. This is the main avenue, if you will. Goes this way. It was called Sniper Alley, and there was a good reason why it was called Sniper Alley, because you get shot there real easily. The city divided up even on Croat side, Serbian side, Muslim side. This is the mosque downtown. The Iranians built it, and they had little cameras that filmed us as we walked by, taking pictures of them. And kind of the plot area, and things were starting to calm down, so you can go down there and have a cappuccino and stuff, and watch pretty girls go by. There is a huge mosque in Sarajevo now that the Saudi Arabians built. Huge, probably 3 or 4 times the size of this. And the Muslim radicals run it. So they're radicalizing the European Muslims, trying to get converts to volunteer, to do jihad. And these people look like you and I, Western European women. Basically, I conclude my brief. I'll jump into terrorism a little bit because I do briefs on those. Like I said in the beginning of our discussion here, we're still at war. There is a threat. It's not going away. It has to do with the religion. If you have a chance, there's some very good books about Islam. Bernard Lewis is the premier expert here in America.
What's his name?
Bernard Lewis. He'll explain to you the weaknesses of the religion. Like I said, there are a lot of good Muslims. There are some very bad ones. There are 1.3 billion Muslims in the world. And a few years ago, the CIA said, well, we think about 10% of them are bad. Meaning they're radicals. They would come and cut our heads off if they had the chance. They've revised that. It's more like 30 to 40%. So radical Islam is getting popular, because it's perceived as successful. If they perceive weakness, particularly from us, they will gobble us up. Weakness provokes. Their religion tells them they're superior to everybody else. There's a conflict there. If we Muslims are superior, how come, you look at the West, you look at the movies, they got paved streets, and people are well dressed and well fed. Here, the goat's dying in the middle of the street, and there's no plumbing. It stinks. Nobody's got a job. No innovation. No business. They see that. And it bothers them tremendously. So the imam gets up there and says, well, it's because of the West. It's their fault. Imams have a lot of power in the Muslim religion. Let's see. There is a connection with Tucson and radical Islam. Are you guys aware of that? Mm-hmm. Started in the 80s. Some of the players that were with Al Qaeda were here, students here. You had an imam that was here in the late 80s, was not radical, didn't really want to go that way, and he was murdered. Murder's never been resolved. And they have a new imam from it, and he was a little more radical. We have troubles with the Somalis up in Minnesota. Maybe you've heard that on the news. It's true. Problem there. A lot of Somalis up there. A lot of young Somalis want to go to Somalia and do jihad, their religious obligation. Some are coming back to incite and radicalize those back here. So Minnesota, Seattle, and one other city in favor right now. So we in the United States have a problem. We try to be an open society, respect individual rights, rule of law, be a civilized society, and still try to fight off an enemy that is highly motivated, that knows God is on their side, and they want to destroy us because they cannot live on this earth with the Western world. Everything we stand for, they're against. Islam is dominated by the Sharia religion. Everything in the Sharia religion is totally opposite of what we have in our Constitution, Bill of Rights. They cannot mesh together. It's impossible. And for those who are devout and believe that their cause is just, whether they're Shia or Sunni, it is an ongoing war. And it started back in 600. Basically, it hadn't stopped. It slowed down for a while. One reason it slowed down in the 20th century, going back to Sarajevo. Sarajevo was a spot where the Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, kicked off World War I. You had the collapse of 4 imperial houses. The Romanovs of Russia, Hohenzollerns of Germany, Habsburgs of Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was the Turks. That's where the Mufti was. Ataturk came into power in Turkey, overthrew them, said we're not going to have a supreme leader, and we'll be a secular country. Everybody else can kind of divide up, make your own country. The British and French helped them do that. That's why that Iraq, Jordan. So the events that took place in 600 took place in 1347 with the fall of Constantinople to the Turks. 1914, 2001, all connected. Muslims know their history. They're fascinated by dates. 9/11 was chosen for a particular reason. Major intelligence failure. They were trying to decapitate the head of the American government and undercut our economy. They damn near pulled it off. Will they come back? Yes, they will. I don't mean to leave you on that sad note, but that concludes my brief. Yes, sir.
I got 2 basic questions. Going back to the threat which is closest to us here in Tucson, I've heard on the news recently that the drug cartels have more armed agents on the other side of on the northern side of the Mexico border than the federales do. Is that true, or?
That wouldn't surprise me. If all the cartels said, okay, let's make peace between us and we'll finish off the Mexican government, their army would be as equal, just as well armed.
Well, the numbers I heard were, X number of thousands, X number of thousands of people, and X plus, 20,000.
Okay, Mexican military is about 130,000. Okay. Combat units, probably 40 to 50, 60. You have to have transportation, supply, communications, all that. Cartels, about 100,000, give or take, just as well armed. And we have a lot of soldiers deserting the Mexican army. You make more money working for the cartel. You may not retire, but you make more money. And live.
Going back to Mexico for a second, it seems as though the State Department is equivocating. First, having said American citizens should not be going to Mexico, and then probably due to political pressure from the Mexicans, because it's such an important tourism, is such an important thing for their economy, they now dropped off of that a bit. You couldn't really go there. It's not as
right. Yeah, the Mexican government put pressure on.
And so my question is it safe to go to Mexico? In other words, assuming you don't have to have a forced overnight in Mexico City, I assume it's safe to fly from here to Cancun, a major.
Yeah, the
tourist area
resorts.
like that. But what about between here and Rocky Point?
That's high risk to me. You know, they may not be actually gunning for you, but they're gunning for the guy on the other side of you. That's the problem. And but kidnapping is taking place. They kidnap people out of the United States and take them to Mexico. Okay. We have had Mexican armed groups with long rifles patrolling inside the United States.
Near the border.
Yes. You have the mountains over by Sassabee and then kind of flat over there by Douglas. But south of us here you have Mexican spotters. What I'm saying is Mexican cartel foot soldiers or spotters watching the border patrol, so they know when they change their shift, when they're coming and going, all along the border. They have scouts who are ahead of the load, and the scouts are heavily armed. And the scouts and those who are with the load have been told, you have to fight for the load now, don't give it up anymore. So there's a challenge to law enforcement.
What do you do on a daily basis?
I read a lot.
Is there scary stuff that goes on around us, very close to us, that we don't know about?
Yes. Yes.
Oh. Great.
One of the patterns that seems to rather consistently emerge, as you mentioned it with the Zetas and many of the leaders seem to obtain training in the U.S. and then go back and become part of the element we're fighting against.
Right.
Have we learned anything from that?
How are you going to tell?
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Now, we can't tell. It's, you assume that when these guys come and they all act like they're motivated people at Mexico, they're going to go back and fight for their country. No, they got a deal over here. Quadruple my pay. And I may be all happy. I'm not making fun of Mexico. Please don't think that. But we don't know. This happened during the Vietnam War. We brought South Vietnamese over here to train. They went home, boom, got off the plane and ran into the jungle. Next thing you know, we're fighting them 3 weeks, 4 weeks later. I don't know that. Our society is so damn open, anybody can, take advantage of us, and they do.
Mm-hmm. Does the U.S. support them with arms or money or?
You mean Mexico?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Forces?
I'm sorry?
Any forces?
No. We do have law enforcement down there. We are trying to support them more, but this becomes a sensitive issue with the Mexicans now. Okay? They don't want the Yankees coming down there and telling them what to do.
Again.
Yeah.
Again, we did it. We took the top half of their country.
Well, no.
It's called the Mexican-American War.
Right.
We did do it.
And then we paid them for it, too. They lost the war and then we paid them for it.
Not much. We dictated the
price of property those days. What do you expect?
We dictated the terms.
Mexico had plans to occupy New Orleans.
We don't.
Mexico had plans to occupy Dallas, Shreveport, Louisiana, all the way up to Oklahoma.
It was theirs. We took it.
It was a war, 19th century war of conquest.
We had manifest destiny, and they have not forgotten it. We know where the hot.
We don't know. That's what I say.
In 1986, our government promised us they were going to secure the southern border.
Right.
Obviously, that hasn't worked.
No.
Is that a reasonable thing that we should expect? And
that's what you must. To be honest with you, there's a whole bunch of things that have to be done. One, we need to cooperate with the Mexican government. Okay, and they need to cooperate with us. It's not going to be easy. They're sensitive to issues, obviously. Calderon has been serious about trying to resolve this problem. We got to help them on that. We have to help them with equipment, training, and probably putting in law enforcement people like we did in the Balkans. That's going to be the best way. It's not going to resolve the issue overnight, but at least it might start stepping to resolving it. Bear in mind, the cartels do not want to defeat the Mexican government. Okay? That's the business. They want the Mexican government to quit. Leave us alone so we can do our business. What's their business?
Getting things north of the border.
Moving things north. Why are they moving things north? Because there's a demand. There's a huge demand in Europe, North America, and in Canada as well. If there was no demand, we wouldn't have this trouble. So, these are things that you have to go home with your families. I told those kids at the university, I said, how many of you used dope? I mean, I like to use some weed. I said, well, people are dying to get that to you. Literally. I'm talking about families, kids, not just cops and soldiers. Yes, sir.
What kind of a relationship do you have with Janet Napolitano?
Actually, we have a good relationship. I met her once, and she avoids me, and that's fine. I understand.
Do you think our government has an intent to try and control our southern border?
No.
Okay.
That's the sad thing. I'm sorry. I wish I'll be blunt with you. No.
Okay.
What about north? Canadian border, what kind of issues?
The Canadians are upset with us because drugs go through the border, okay, and guns. Canadians have an extremely strict gun law up there. And so when this guy was talking about Canada and their concerns, he kept bringing up guns. And I said, well, you guys have very strict gun laws. Why do you have a problem? Right? Can't have a gun in Canada. Well, who has the guns? But the criminals who have the guns. He finally broke down and said, the motorcycle gangs and the other gangs. Those are the people who have the guns. The cops have guns, the bad guys have guns. People in between don't have any guns.
What is your view on armed civilians in the United States?
I follow the Switzerland program. You know about Switzerland?
No.
Yeah. Switzerland, everybody is armed in Switzerland with an automatic rifle and ammunition.
Don't they?
You ever wonder why Hitler didn't invade Switzerland in 1939?
That'd be a big problem.
You ever wonder why the Japanese didn't invade the United States? Because they considered that. After hitting Pearl Harbor, they'll come on into California. Americans have quit after that. Major reason that they said in their documents, and I believe it's true, Americans had guns. Find out all the damn Americans out there with their guns shooting at us.
Okay, so the people that are trying to take away our guns, or that sort of thing. My view on that, out of my cold dead hands.
Yeah. Well, bear in mind, here let's with international terrorism, think about the events that have taken place over particularly in the Pakistan, India area recently. You had the attack on Mumbai, largest city in India, used to be called Bombay. It was done by an amphibious assault by 10 guys with automatic weapons and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. They killed 79 people. They intentionally searched out the 2 Jews in the town, in the city, and killed them. They pulled off their operation very successfully. They used cell phones, talked back and forth to the people in Pakistan. And the guy in Pakistan, keep it open, I want to hear you kill those infidels. Huh? They're dead, sir. Okay. This is the type of war we're dealing with now. The United States military could take on anybody, Navy, Army, Air, whatever. We can take the whole world on at one time and whip their butts. But we're not fighting that war. There's no Soviet Union anymore. This is a war of, I hate to say it's kind of barbaric, but it's back to knives and guns and swords and pistols. And that's the way they fight.
Yeah, but they are using the internet, like out in...
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Why can't we just cut the internet off to that section of Afghanistan and Iraq?
We do. We do. And they use the one in Stuttgart and London and so forth. Yes, ma'am. This lady's going to get mad at me, real. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, 2 questions. One, I'd like to hear your opinion about what happened recently with the ship being taken over and the captain being held hostage. Feel that. Secondly, I'd like to know what we as local hands can do to help you here in Tucson. You've got a lot of eyes and ears.
Good. I'll answer the second question first. If you see something suspicious, you'll know because the hair on the back of your neck stands up. If you see something really scary, stomach's in your throat. Okay? You'll know. Call the police. Call the police. Call the feds. Call the FBI. They've got a counterterrorism center here. So everybody's here. DEA, sheriff, city police, all the federal agencies. Call them up and they'll send somebody over. But it's up to you guys. It's up to all of us. That doesn't mean you got to go around and look at everybody that looks suspicious like they're from the Middle East. Because most Muslims are not Arabs. Okay? The largest Muslim country in the world is Indonesia. You have Muslims coming out of Western Europe. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to talk about the pirates real quick? Yes, piracy works. Piracy has been working in the waters of Indonesia, Philippines, for a number of years. And a lot of people died over there. And they were primarily coming up behind the ship, usually at night, grappling hooks on, come aboard, and taking over the crew. Because on most of your merchant ships, they would have between 10 and 50 people. And they put the thing on automatic pilot, wide open ocean. There you go. You know, it's on a course, speed, you're not going to hit any land. They go down and watch a movie. You may have one guy on the bridge. Unlike an American ship, you got guys all over the place, binoculars, you don't know. There's one guy up there. And he may want to take a coffee break. Or just go to the bathroom. Nobody's on the bridge. So it's easy to take over merchant ships because they're not going to fight back. Off the coast of Somalia, you heard about the Horn. You got, are you real good with geography? The Indian Ocean, you got Somalia, and there's kind of a horn. Then Dubai, not Dubai, Abu Dhabi, no. Djibouti, thank you. Is that it?
Yeah.
No. It's where the French Horn leads. And you got the mouth to the Red Sea, which leads you up to the Suez Canal. Okay, that area in the Horn is heavily trafficked by ships from all over the world, and so oil and products are all going through there. And so these little dhows, or speedboats now, because they make so much money as pirates, they can buy more sophisticated boats, come speeding out off the beach, and they'll get behind the ship, and they all have AK-47 and RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades. Very good weapon. And they'll fire rounds at them so they'll stop. If they don't stop, they'll catch up to them and come on board. And so with the American ship, they did that. And I don't know how the crew got the ship back, but obviously it was, confrontation. The crew did not have weapons other than pocket knives and water hose. And the pirates had AK-47s, very effective weapon. And somehow or other, to keep the peace, the captain said, I'll go with you if you let my crew go. And they agreed to that. Because they were interested in the money. $2 million. Chump change to a big shipping company. U.S. Navy gets involved. They obviously watched them. Other ships came along, so the pirates couldn't go anywhere, run low on water, food. Navy says, look, what we'll do is, why don't you get in this better boat here? We'll give you some water and food. Seas got a little rough, so the Navy said, tell you what, we'll throw a line to you, and we'll tow you to where the water's smoother. Okay. So the Navy was drawing them in, trying to keep the captain alive. Captain jumped overboard the first time. I think you heard that.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't react. They didn't know he was going to do it. They couldn't react fast enough. I don't think the SEAL teams were on board, and that's probably the reason why. So they got sailors up here with M60s and 50 calibers, which aren't that accurate when you spray, So you need accurate fire. So the SEALs come in. They jumped on the other side of the ship at night, the American warship at night. Comes to the American warship, set themselves up, waiting for an opportunity to take these guys out. The opportunity came, and they hit three of them in the head. All at one time. If anybody's, with guns, that's not easy. The distance wasn't that far, 50 meters, something like that.
Rough seas.
Yeah, but you're moving, they're moving.
They say they were rough seas.
Yeah, and all three of them stuck their head up basically at the same time. The fourth guy was already on board because he was not feeling good, so he became the prisoner. And the other SEALs were in the water, and the sailors from the ship had their boat in the water, and they were able to get everybody out and move them away. Close call.
Didn't those guys paratroop in?
Yeah, they did. But they did it so that the pirates couldn't see them, so they had to do it at night.
Yeah.
And shark-infested waters, you got the heaviest concentration of white sharks in the world. Off Somalia.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were good.
About ships, do we have any American warships off the Mexican coast?
Mexican coast?
Off Mexico?
Yes, we do, because we work with the Mexican Navy to try and catch that bad guy. So U.S. Coast Guard and U.S. Navy help them out. Mm-hmm.
Can you give us your opinion about news media and their inability, for whatever reason, to report truthful things that happen, and real things that happen, rather than what the nonsensical stuff they present? That's my opinion. I like that opinion.
Well, mine's pretty close to yours. I'm a realist, okay? I'm a retired Navy captain. I'm never going to make admiral. And I'm near the end of my career here, so I don't give a damn. The American news media has failed you tremendously.
Yes.
It failed you with the war. We could never identify the enemy. Who is the enemy? War on terror. That's like saying war against kamikazes. Our own political correctness is going to kill us.
Absolutely.
Radical Islam knows that. They take advantage of it. They do it by intimidation and demands. Taxi drivers in Minneapolis won't pick up a guy because he's got a seeing eye dog. Okay? Oh, all right, well, we'll do that. We'll get somebody else to pick him up. Minneapolis gave in. The taxi company gave in. Well, a dog is the worst animal in the world. It's like a pig. Muslims. That type of thing. Little demands here and there. It's been very effective against the Europeans. If you're going to make a trip to Europe, you better do it fairly soon, because Europe is not going to be in Europe much longer. I'm serious.
What's going to happen?
The Muslims are out producing them. They're making more babies.
They're taking over England.
Well,
Just about.
That's what I'm worried about here.
Yeah. The Europeans, since World War II, and also going back to World War I, do not have the will. They're embarrassed about their culture. They're sensitive about being imperialists. And the Muslims take advantage of that. Bear in mind, Muslims were imperialists too. They occupied Spain. They occupied India violently. They pushed into what is called the stands. You know what the religion was in the Middle East prior to Muhammad being visited by Gabriel? Right? Christianity. Some of your major cities of Christianity were in what was in Asia Minor, what we call Turkey and Lebanon today. They were occupied by the Muslims. Their invasion of the Balkans was very vicious. They promoted their religion by the sword. They did it peacefully too, yeah. But they promoted by the sword. Way more than Christians ever did. The Jews have never done that. The Jews and Christians were the religion of the Middle East. Iran had a religion called Zoroastrians. I'm sorry? Did I mispronounce it? Yeah, sorry. Yes, sir.
My second question was that with what Janet Napolitano made public today, with a big long list of categories of what she calls terrorists now, do we as ham operators fall into that list, or could we be looked upon as falling into that list of terrorists?
Isn't that a shame you even have to think about that here in our society?
Yep.
That's crossed your mind. It's probably crossed everybody's mind. You heard about the thing they released today?
No. What was that?
There was the federal law enforcement agencies, meaning I'm part of that, have to be on the lookout and be concerned about right-wing terrorist organizations. Veterans coming back from the Iraq-Afghani war can be easily recruited by right-wing hate groups. Can you name one?
Anyone that believes in the Constitution.
Yeah. The fear, to me, the fear is, I'm a history buff, okay? The fear is they're making, just like the Nazis and the Bolsheviks did, they're making enemies out of nothing, out of thin air. The Germans are damn Jews, okay? The communists is those kulaks. It was the bourgeoisie. Those, you own a business, you've been exploiting the people. We'll take it away from you and kill you. And he did. But you had a business, your shoe business or whatever, you weren't exploiting anybody. But that political philosophy encourages hate. The isms that we are dealing with, communism, fascism, Nazism, all came out of the 20th century. Actually, I got started before that, but they really got going at the end of World War II. You had the communists take over Russia, slaughtered millions. You had the rise of fascism, which was extremely popular in the United States. A lot of your leading progressives thought Mussolini had the answer. It was a socialist government. Nazis, National Socialist Party, socialist government, socialist for Germans, socialist for Italians, Unlike the communists, socialism for all the workers of the world. There was conflict there. Joe Stalin wouldn't have put up with that. That's why fascism became a bad word. Because it was a challenge to him. Of course, then they clashed in World War II. But we're still dealing with the communism philosophy. Not many people sign up for fascism. I mean, the wooden stake was driven in the heart of that. But not with the fall of the Soviet Union. I really thought that was going to be the end of it. We'd see the arrest of, prison guards and trying to get the stories of the Gulag and, everything come out about Stalin. Because Stalin killed far, far more people than Hitler ever did. Nothing. Violence. 40 million.
So what does ham radio, how does ham radio fall into this?
Maybe communicating with underground people. And we trust you.
Same way that the Japanese were put into internment camps because they might talk to Japanese
exactly
during the war.
And it was never the case of a Japanese American doing that. The fear is communications. Oh yeah, but you guys are all common people, aren't you? Yeah. Without communications, nothing happens. Armies don't move. Ships don't sail. Cops don't come to your house if it gets robbed. Fire department doesn't arrive. We have to have communications. Whenever a totalitarian organization wanted to take over a country, whether it was left wing, a real left wing, fascist, Nazi, communist, the first place they went was communications, a radio station at the time, then the TV stations. You look at all the little revolts in Central and South America in the 50s and 60s, the first place that whoever wanted to take over, the colonel, whatever, boom, they went right to the TV station. They control the mic. I'm in charge. That's how important communications is. So you'll know you're in trouble when some stranger, some government official, hopefully God forbid me, comes in and says, you got to turn that down, all right? We didn't like what you said last night. Let's talk about it. Here. It happens. I'm sorry, what?
Now will you let me have the mic?
But it happens. What we have as a republic is a very delicate thing, okay? And the people that put it all together were very smart, and they looked at all the type of governments there were, from anarchists all the way over to kings and dictators and, absolute governments. He chose the thing in the middle, a representative republic. And if we as citizens aren't serious about our government, we lose it.
That's right.
Evil can happen anywhere. There's a very fine line between the civilized man and the beast. I've been in 3 wars. I've seen it. You guys from Vietnam, I don't know if there are any Gulf War vets in here. Yeah, been there, done that, saw that. Yeah. It can happen here. I don't want it to. None of us do. But we are not exempt from that. I'm not saying the present administration will do it. I don't think so. I don't believe they would. But it could happen if we lose confidence and faith in ourselves. Our enemies know that. Radical Muslims know that. You punch the Americans hard in the nose and they'll quit. We proved it to them. No, by God, we have proved it to them. Vietnam vets, 10 of 68. We won the battle. Huge. We slaughtered the communists of the South, the Viet Cong. We decimated the North Vietnamese divisions that came across from Laos and Cambodia. Guess what they reported here? It was a failure. It's like D-Day took place, and 5 days after D-Day, the news media said, it's a failure, get everybody out. Oh my God, we lost the war. No. But everybody believed that. The North Vietnamese fired General Giap because of that debacle. He's a big hero of Dien Bien Phu. Okay? He got fired. But the political officer said, whoa, wait a minute. Look what happened in the U.S. The Americans believe they've lost. They're going to quit. And we did. Beirut, 1983. Radical Islam made their debut on stage. We had suicide bombers take out the American embassy. At the American embassy that day was the leading Middle East experts having a conference. I think there was about 7 or 8 of them, and then some others. But these were the American best players on what's going on in the Middle East. Truck bomb drove into the garage of the embassy, blew up. Right underneath they were having that conference. Torn apart. They were in pieces. What was it, a few months later, American were hit at the Marine barracks. Soldiers, sailors, and Marines died that day. How many? 241? 200 something. Marines, French were hit. Suicide bomber. The guy driving that huge, big old truck, as he drove by the Marine, who had an M16 but no round in the chamber because Congress said he couldn't do it, and news media backed him up. Don't want to have any accidents out there, smiled at him as he drove right on by, and the guy's trying to get his weapon up. Oh, boom. At that time, that was the biggest conventional explosion we ever had. Somalia in 1993. They whipped our butts. That's what those Somalis know today. That's what those pirates were thinking. They took on a Special Forces Ranger unit, killed actually 19 because one of the soldiers died in Germany a few days later. Wounded 100, something like that. In Vietnam, we had those firefights once a week. But it was perceived as a failure. American bodies were drugged through the street. U.S. said, whoop, we quit. Clinton put in half of an Army division in there so there's a little protection as we back down. There's literally film of American tanks backing out on the beach onto the Navy landing craft as we leave, and the Somalis running up. They won. They did. So we proved to them over the last 40 years that they can take America out. They were surprised that we reacted the way we did on 9/11. They believed the news media that cowboy from Texas ain't got a spy. He ain't gonna do jack. Clinton didn't do anything. We'll take out the head of the American government and we'll destroy their economy. Almost pulled it off. And he said, I'm coming after you. And here we are. How long have we been fighting? We went in October 2001. I think it's when the Rangers jumped in Kandahar. We perceive wars as we get in there, we whip their butts, we win it, and then we build up the nation. Like the Japanese and the Germans. That's the way we think of war. They don't think it that way. For them it's personal. They respect us now, but in the beginning they didn't because we'd stand off and blow them away. To them it's a knife fight. And the war we're in today is a knife fight. Have you guys heard of the Bethlehem School in Russia, southern Russia? Grade school? Oh, up to junior high, I think. Radical Muslims out of Chechnya drove into southern Russia to a school on the first day of school. You got all these little cute girls, they're dressed